The Global Series is underway. Seems like we've waited forever. And we still haven't got the Leafs.
No, not yet.
Day 5.
But this game is heating up,
hockey.
boys. It was 4-0 Ottawa. It is 4-4.
Really?
Yes.
And we are Real Kyper and Bourne on Sportsnet 590, Sportsnet 360, and Sportsnet Plus from 4 to 6 p.m. and wherever you download your pod. And apparently there's a few people wanting us back on YouTube. And
You did
by
it.
chance, in the future, if you don't catch our show live on the many platforms, you can always go to YouTube and pull it up from there.
Fascinating.
Not really.
No?
I don't know.
I just put us everywhere. And
I don't
people
know.
figure it out.
I don't know. So day 5 without the Toronto Maple Leaf hockey. You just mentioned the Ottawa Senators blowing a 4-0 lead.
Good
And this is
Lord.
after 2, if we're going to be up to date.
Yes, this is after. It's at the second intermission right now. I mean, what a show for these fans overseas, though. I mean, good Lord. I saw people not requesting the Swedish word for ass kicking, and trying to, when it was 4-0, but things done changed.
Nice. All right.
Yeah.
Well, we got a terrific show for you in our Toronto Maple Leaf Hour edition. In about 7 or 8 minutes, we got Colby Amstrong, former Toronto Maple Leaf and presently co-host of Chicklets Game Notes and TV analyst for the Penguins and commercial entrepreneur. He's pushing everything from, I don't know, meat pies to insurance. He's everywhere.
It's tough to make fun of the Desjardins commercials because they're so nice and sweet.
I don't know. Have you ever met
But-
Kyper? I think you'll figure it out.
But Colby,
That's why they took a long pass on me doing those commercials. I mean,
Yeah.
like, hey, kid, come here. Get over here.
buy insurance. Are you insured? Do you have a will?
And Colby's so sweet.
Yes.
Very sweet. And then in about half an hour, we're going to welcome in Jason Bukala, former NHL scout, Sportsnet NHL analyst. He always does a terrific job. So we're going to get right into it on Zadorov and Tanev, possible fit for the Leafs, and where he truly sees them as a scout and the value and what the Leafs need to give up.
Yeah.
We'll get his thoughts a little later on in the show, but we continue to wait for the Toronto Maple Leafs in Detroit, and we'll see if Detroit's coming into that game tomorrow afternoon, 2 o'clock Eastern puck drop.
Yeah.
Hot or feeling like they let one slip away.
Well, either way, you like that this is a hotly contested game, and hopefully it drains all their resources and goes to overtime, and everyone pulls a hamstring or two, and the Leafs can, have a decent go tomorrow.
All
Been a
right.
while.
Let's start with Willie Nylander because he seems to be the flavor of the week for sure over in Sweden.
Oh, yes.
Bell the
And-
ball, baby.
He is.
He is. I wrote an article today, my weekly article on Willie Nylander.
Do you have AI do it now? Is that what you do?
AI can't do what I do. I appreciate, where it's come a long way in a
Yeah.
very short period of time, but they're not the real Kyper.
They're not.
No.
But it is. It was a good article. Would you like to give us the premise?
The premise is that whatever we thought Willie was worth as early as 2 months ago, and that includes the Toronto Maple Leafs, who have made multiple efforts to get him signed.
Now, that was my first takeaway.
Yeah.
Sorry to interrupt you.
Sure.
But my first takeaway reading your article, I think in the second or third paragraph, it's like, their first offer to Nylander was $2 or $3 million light. And I was like, their first offer. I didn't know that. So since Tree Living has been the GM, they have made an offer.
they would love to get him signed. And, I don't know where it begun, to be honest with you. But if you're the Leafs, I think if you would have just kind of played along in this in the early stages of negotiations, it might have started with an 8.
No, wait.
Listen, just to start.
So you think they made him an offer that low?
I think it was really low. I don't know what the number is, but there's a few around me that say it was not anywhere near where it needed to be, or at least work itself.
This is when it's an advantage to have a guy like Nylander who's not like, I'm so offended I'll leave. He's just like, no,
Now,
not good enough.
I believe that at some point in the summer, they would have started low, and then would have liked to get to
9.5.
9.5, 9.6, 9.7. But where it's going now is top 10 status.
Top 10 status. Huh?
Top 10 status
in the National League.
in the National League. Do you have, I asked you earlier, do you have the
Yes.
list of top 10? So we do know this year, it's this year, next year, it will be Austin Matthews because Connor McDavid is not up. So we assume that Pettersson's going to get a hefty raise. Now he's got another year before he becomes a UFA, but I don't think anybody sees him passing Austin Matthews just yet. Can he deliver a Stanley Cup? Can he deliver 120 points? We know where the top 3 scorers in the league are right now. They're all out of Vancouver.
Yeah.
But he is a type of guy that if the magic continues in Vancouver, how high can he go on his next contract? But there's no question right now that the Willie camp believes that he can be a top-paid player between 1 and 10. So give us a little background on who's there now.
All right, so looking at next year, making sure this is next year, you got Matthews as number 1, 13.25. And then you got McKinnon, McDavid, Panarin, Carlson, Pasternak, Doughty, Dahlin, Tavares, Marner. That's your top 10. At 10.9 is Mitch Marner's number.
And somewhere in between.
For you, the top 10. Yay, we did it.
We did it.
And somewhere in between, I think Willie sees himself.
Now, yeah, okay.
How much more realistic is that today than it was a few months ago?
Yeah, it's not out of the question because I think if you're a free agent and there's plenty of teams who would say, yeah, we'll give you, 11 times 7. I think teams would do that in a heartbeat, and the Leafs obviously can do the extra year.
And that's big.
The extra year, yeah.
The extra year is big. And the other thing that's really big for the Toronto Maple Leafs is that they can give you cash up front.
They're not afraid to front load.
They can go $15, $16 million, and they can do $13, $14 million, one lump sum on a signing bonus, which excites any financial advisor out there.
How would you ever leave your house and not just stare at your bank account the day that hits?
That would feel
like
I would just assume that feels really good.
Just be sitting on the
Those
couch,
are
holding
advantages.
the app open.
Those are advantages. Now, does that make Willie and his representative, Louis Gross, go, okay, then maybe we can work out a number that reflects a little bit of that upfront money? But, guys, like unless Willie feels very generous, which we don't believe that's ever been the case with him from the moment he sat out on his last contract for 3 months, that this guy is going to give them any type of discount.
So $88 million to match his jersey number is what you're looking at here.
Hey, Marner
Does that
got
work
his
for
jersey
you?
number.
So
Matthews did.
Does that really matter?
So you
No.
no, I'm just alluding to that.
Yeah.
So you think that if they had done this in the regular season, like at the start of the regular season, it was 9.5, 9.6
I think that's
in that range.
I do believe that would have been a nice number that the Leafs would have been comfortable with.
Okay, but I thought you meant that was what the Willie camp would have been comfortable with. Have they always wanted 10?
I don't know. Before the season started, I can't speak of that.
So can the Leafs do it?
Yes, and basically the rest of my article is it's going to be rather there's going to be a lot of juggling in terms of future contracts, and I named a handful of guys that are on the 1-year deal. The issue is, though, to make up for the money that Willie's going to have,
Yep.
could be just Klingberg's money alone, right? Because he's going
Pack
from
that on to
7
Willie.
to so just give him the 4. But then if that's the case, then you've eaten up all your new money coming in, and you have nothing more than the same team you have now.
You're just going back to last year's cap. Like this year's cap.
But that's
Well, not if you're taking Klingberg's money. Then it's Klingberg's money, not the cap.
But then if you're taking all of those guys back, that means no raises for anybody.
Right.
And that also means
And we know
that also means that Brody's coming off.
Mm-hmm.
And
Klingberg, Bertuzzi, Brody, Domi, Samsonov, you have at 21.2.
so can you Can you bring all those guys back on new deals at the same amount of money?
No.
Of
No,
course
but you
not.
also don't want to.
Of course not. So there's a dilemma here.
Yeah.
Is that you're going to have to almost think that just to get Willie back next year, that you have to weaken the rest of your lineup because you've got to replace those one-year deals, and you can't necessarily replace them with the same amount of money.
Well, it's one of those things, right? So the cap goes up $4 million, and a couple mil of that goes to Matthews, compared to previous years. Klingberg comes off, you're looking to replace him at then minimum. So you're right. That doesn't make you any weaker.
No.
But you're looking to improve, not just tread water. Depends what happens with a lot of these guys. Bertuzzi, Brody, Domi. I see your point, but, the cap going up and having money coming off does give them some options. Where were you taking this then? What do you see as what's going to have to happen in your mind?
Well, the thing is if you now are willing to pay Willie Nylander 11 and a half, whatever that number ultimately gets to.
Oh, boy. If I'm
11 and a half.
Oh,
easy, Bubba. Easy. Holy. 11 and a half.
I don't know, if I would have
It's
told
going to
you.
go by the end of the show. It's going to be 14.
God.
Sammy,
Is he Pasternak here?
If I would have told you 11 2 months ago, you would have
Same
reacted
reaction.
the same.
100%.
The same.
No question.
If it's 11, then it's where do you value now Tavares and Marner moving forward? And Marner is the tricky one.
In what way?
In what way is like, do you keep him? Do you re-sign him? And if you do, what's that number? He's at 11 now, and can you
He's
afford
worth
that?
11.
But you can't.
Yeah.
You can't keep Austin.
Yeah.
Marner on a new contract. Willie's new contract that would have been a year old.
Yeah.
And then Tavares still has next year at 11. The math doesn't add up for next year. Doesn't add up.
Next year, yeah.
Right? So now maybe puts Marner in play a lot more if they sign this contract with Willie.
So
we got a guest.
All right, we'll pick up this conversation after we bring in Colby Armstrong, who is just. Are you ever home?
Hey, look at his background.
Okay, what do we have in the background? We got beer. We got. Have we got insurance back
Saskatchewan
there?
flag or what?
Thanks for dressing up for our show.
Well, yeah, I'm going to work tonight. Sammy's hounding me. He's like, "Hey, can I get you? Can I get you?" Oh my God! And then 2 minutes ago, he's like, "We do a Zoom," so I got it all done up. We got the Pens game tonight, boys. Pens versus Devils, 5 in a row. We got what is this over here? We got me riding an eagle, carrying a Saskatchewan flag.
Sick.
Shout out to everyone in Saskatchewan. All my teams over here that I played for. The city of Bridges in the background, some ocean, and then a mountain, and then a sun.
Could not
like it?
look any cooler, man.
So is that artwork done by your kids or?
No, this is by a world famous local Pittsburgh guy named Cody Sable, who's like a speed finger painter, guys. This guy's unbelievable. He can paint people upside down, turn it over, and there it is. And he does it in like 5 minutes. So
Wow.
I asked him, he's a buddy of mine, if he could do this. And he got her done for me. But this is where I do like podcasting and stuff. So I just set up back down in here tonight.
You are the co-host of Chicklets Game Notes, and you do a terrific job with the Pittsburgh Penguins. But just want to get into the Leafs with you. We do know that the Global Series is underway, Ottawa and Detroit right now, going into the third here. Just your experiences internationally over your career, spending any time over there, trying to get used to everything. How big of an adjustment when you dealt with international play?
Yeah, it's a lot, I think, and playing world championships twice, once in Moscow, once in Switzerland, and just the time change. I don't know what that's like for those guys. I was just with the Penguins on an 8-day trip out in California, and I was dragging, man. That's tough to do, and these guys can go out there and perform and light it up. What's the score right now in that game, by the way? The last I saw was 4-4.
Still 4-4.
4-4. So boys are going to town over there, but the food, they're getting shown around a bunch. I'm sure it's not just for the NHL. It's not just the hockey. It's showcasing the stars and giving them experience. And, a guy like Nylander, who's in his home country, and others on every team that's over there. And, all the ex-superstar Swedes that are there as well. And so it's a big event. It's a lot to take on. And I imagine it's a lot to take on while slamming in games that actually count on your schedule as well. So kind of crazy. It's like playing in the outdoor game, guys. I played in that first one, the first Winter Classic.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, after the game, I was kind of like, did that really count as a real game? Like, is that 2 points for real? So I think it's a lot for them to undertake with time change, playing your game and all the off ice extracurricular activities as well surrounding just the game itself or the games.
Colby, I know this is supposed to be our Leafs portion of the show, but while we have you on, I'd love to ask you about those Penguins. Yesterday we were talking about them and they just win now, after such a rough start. What's changed there?
They've been saying all along, they've been saying, look, we're close. We can feel things coming along. They've got in a completely different bottom six. They've added Karlsson, who's, a pretty particular player with his skill set. And I think those skill guys have to feel a certain way, have to understand what's going on. And Karlsson's so automatic, like he sees everybody on the ice. So for him to kind of settle in and start to produce, which he is right now, he's lighting it up right now for them, has been a big difference, but it's just taken some time. It's taken some time. And you know what, for everything at the start of the year, when I was watching them going, oh, it doesn't look that good. Like, what's going on here? How's this going to go? To them, going on the road to California and getting on a little bit of a tear. San Jose, hey, San Jose just sparked them. Big 10-goal game for them. It just got everybody feeling good. Yeah, just line it up with San Jose. But I think it was an opportunity for them though to kind of go, we got to figure it out here a little bit with their back against the wall early, and then just a little bit of time as well for them to sort things out. But they look fast now. It's crazy to say, but they're playing fast. People say they're old. People say they're slow, and I could see that. But obviously for the last 4 years, right, guys, watching them has been, what's going on here. So right now they're playing a fast, hard, aggressive game, and they're winning games. They're finding ways to win games as well.
We're talking to Colby Amstrong, Arm Dog, host of Chicklets Game Notes. Hey, even early in their season, there's some games I didn't mind them that badly, but I thought Jari always was the second best goalie when I watched early, and now all of a sudden he's settling in as well.
Yeah. Yeah. And you know what happened, Kippy? And I don't know if I've seen this from him in his time in Pittsburgh. They lost to Anaheim on a shorthanded goal in the last 12 seconds of the game before they left to California. And after that game, it was a McTavish breakaway and he buried it to win the game. And after the game, he took the heat. Like he said, I got to be better. I've never seen him do that. He just really took ownership. And in talking to Mike Sullivan, he just thinks that's just maturity with him, just him, stepping up in front of his teammates. I think that goes a long way with your teammates too, right? When you take ownership and say, hey, that's on me, I got to be better. And he just gone out there and played lights out, got knocked out of a game, shared a shutout that game with Hellberg, who's up here right now. But since then, he's been on fire. He leads the league with 3 shutouts. He's making saves when he has to. And he's kind of turned the corner and found his game. But you're right. At the start of the year, he was floundering, couldn't find his game. It was, what's going on? Obviously, after that new contract that they extended him with. And, right now he's riding a real nice wave, though, as this team's doing really well. And it's a lot to do with him. Sid's on fire. Karlsson's on fire. Gensel's on fire. But Tristan Jarry's played really well.
Yeah, it goes a long way getting your goaltender playing well.
Yeah.
We've been sitting here discussing the Leafs as a crisis team for a lot of this year. They won a couple games last weekend. The record's starting to come around a little bit. What are your thoughts on, I would characterize it as a slow start for the Leafs. Some of the new players haven't integrated themselves all that well. Yeah. What are your thoughts on what's taken them a little while to get going with this new look Leafs team?
Like, I feel like there's so much chatter around this team with physicality, right? So they go and get some guys that have a little bit of bite. And that's kind of been like a hot button issue with those players. Reeves has taken it. Domi at times has taken it. And it's situations where, the Liljegren non-fight situation, it's crazy on one side of the things. When you got a team that's really built for, scoring and skill and offensive ability. And for it to be such a hot button topic with the physicality part, then we got Giordano scrapping, we got guys stepping up and guys going nuts and filling in that area. And, Giordano's a guy that's always been able to do that. He always has. Like, where did that go? Why just now? Why couldn't he have been in the guy? I know he's a little older, but a situation where I think that's inside him and part of his game. So are they trying to figure it out still? Yeah, a little bit. Do they struggle at times defensively? And the question mark maybe is what's in the net. I think that's going to happen. But I think they're always going to be in a conversation and a threat when you've got the stars that they have. Willie Nylander's a beast this year. Matthews is scoring like crazy. And I think that's what they have to sink their teeth in, is to being that kind of team. That's just what they are.
Colby, speaking of Willie Styles, a lot of talk here, and just prior to you coming on air, we were talking about what it could cost the Leafs to bring him back. And just and in Pittsburgh, you got Gensel, who's looking for a new contract as well. And he's going to be in a situation much like Willie of getting a hefty raise here. Where are you on both these guys, both these clubs, on how long they can fish before they got to cut bait with a cap that's up against it?
Yeah. And that's a situation, right? And I think every team's different as far as who's up, who's off the books next year, who they can afford, how these pieces are going to fit. I know Gensel kind of has a little bit of a rap going against him, right? It's always going to be that weight. Like, what can he do if he's not playing with Sidney Crosby? What kind of player is he? And that's what they'll say. Like, they're going to say that, even though he's an elite scorer, right? He's been a undercover elite scorer in this league for a number of years, but it kind of falls to the side of going, yeah, you know what? That's mostly because of Sid. I do think he's really good. I do think he's really smart. I do think he's a really good goal scorer. I think he's a crafty player that plays, I wouldn't say physical, but he's aggressive and gets into hard areas. But in the case of Willie and Jake, the price tag, I don't know, when you're up against the cap, even the Pens are fighting the cap too. They're right to the ceiling and capped out. So looking into the future, what that number is going to be. And I'm hearing Willie, what are you guys saying? 11? What are you guys saying?
That's what this guy's saying, the guy who knows stuff.
I don't know stuff.
We were on the Marnsey one, bud. Kippy was on the Marnsey. He had it. Kippy loves the cap. Kippy loves going for those, but I think he's probably right. Why wouldn't you if you're Willie? He already held out to November the 1 year, and for his last deal, like, look at the game he's playing. Look how important he is. He's even got a darn shorthanded goal this year. So it's just these kind of important players that sneak up on you when you're stacked already. And it's kind of been a situation with the Leafs forever, right? Really top heavy with their big guys. So you look to balance out a little bit.
No salary cap dealing with spitting chiclets. Is there for you?
I haven't heard, but I'm sure it's internal, how this business works, boys.
Listen, you look like $1 million for those of you that you can watch them on our platforms. Terrific job. I don't know if maybe a pigeon would have been more suitable, Ryan,
than the eagle.
Than an eagle.
That's great.
That's good, Kippy. You still got it, buddy.
Thanks, pal.
Still got it.
Yeah,
hey,
I gotta love that.
Cancer night tonight in Pittsburgh. Hockey. Just everybody,
Good
give
stuff.
Some love to people in the battle.
Great job,
Colby. Thanks for joining us, man.
Thanks, pal. Have a great night, Colby Armstrong.
Hey, we got to get that finger painting guy to do our backdrop here. What do you think? Get us painted up.
Yes.
You're in.
Or we can get any grade 2.
So
I'll get my daughter.
we've seen some awesome ones so far, right? Like McCarty had a really cool one.
Yeah, good backdrop.
I'm trying to think of the other ones that we've had, but that one, I mean,
Mike Kelly's is nice.
Mac is just like him in front of like a
Mac,
blinding
you never know
sun.
where he is.
He was at Junior Soprano's house the one time.
Yeah.
But I love that. I appreciate a good backdrop.
See, the challenge for the Leafs with the salary cap is they're okay in 2 years when Tavares falls off.
As soon as that 11's gone.
It's next year that is the huge dilemma.
Yeah.
It's that Minnesota Wild thing where you're short-term screwed, but you're okay after that.
If you just look at the math and go backwards, it dries up real quick because you got Austin at 13.25, and then you got potentially Willie at 11. You got Tavares for 11 for 2 more years. You got Marner at 11, 10-9 for 2 more years. And then let's not forget Morgan at 7.5. That's $53 million for a cap that is at 88, which leaves you like mid-30s for 16, 17 guys.
Yeah, that's truly the timing of one deal. If Tavares' deal ended a year sooner, you would be laughing.
So can I ask you, because you've alluded to this.
But it doesn't.
You alluded to this, I think, maybe last week. All the shows blend together. But internally with Marner and Nylander and where they're valued with the organization, and then you had alluded to the fact that maybe Nylander had nudged himself in front of Marner. You still feel that way?
Well, it certainly feels like it's leaning towards that. I got to be honest with you that it just seems that Willie's hot right now, and Willie's the favorite 31 flavor right now.
I'll take us back to some of our more intense arguments last season or whatever about Mitch Marner. And you had mentioned at the time that there were some perceived slights about bonuses and the way he was handled. There were some slights. Some, that he didn't.
Yeah, it never really got off to a great start for Mitch Marner.
Right. And now Willie is playing well, and they're talking about more money for him, and is he slotted in higher than him? Maybe Mitch again feels a little bit. Do you think that there is a piece of Mitch that would welcome playing somewhere else?
He loves Toronto. He's from here, and he takes great pride in that. Mm-hmm. And at the end of the day, no matter how sometimes you get there, the most important thing is that you arrive. And even when Mitch Marner had the 10.9, he went through a year or two where everybody didn't think he was worth it. You questioned his contract at 10.9 at the time.
I have said that he's worth his money for sure, but other people at that time, like Rantanen, signed 9.5,
I mean,
right?
he had to really...
Braden Point signed around that time for not very much.
He had to fight tooth and nail for people to believe that he was worth 10.9. And Austin's never gone through that.
Yeah.
Willie a little bit at 6'9". Don't you remember people were screaming?
Oh, God,
it was crazy.
Yeah.
He was awful.
But
right when he came back from signing that contract, when he missed half the year, he was so bad. And that's what really kicked that off.
There is a sense that in 2 years, there's going to be this boom that the cap will continue to climb up. And in a short while, it'll be 90, 95. And whether it's Mitch Marner, whether it's Connor McDavid, Leon Draisaitl, they're thinking now 13s, 14, 15.
The
AAV.
Matthews number is going to look good. I've said that from the beginning. It is going to look good.
Yeah, for the 20 minutes it's signed for in Toronto.
What do you mean?
The 4-year contract. It's like, it'll look good for the 4 years until it's 17.
4 years.
I hate it.
But I agree with JB that it
was a discount.
It's going to look like a discount in a year or two. Mm-hmm. So if the Leafs are not willing to take Mitch Marner on another 100-plus point season at 13, 14, he can go. We believe that he can go get it somewhere else. Okay. And that's the decision that he's going to have to make in 2 years, or the Leafs can make it for him and say, we're not going there. Therefore, we're going to move you now. Mm-hmm. And whether or not he says yes or no because he has a no move is anybody's guess.
But I got to ask all two of you, and then I'll include myself in this. Who would you rather have?
I'll answer that. Go ahead.
Oh, you first. You jump.
My answer is tomorrow or in 8 years. Because 8 years from now, when these deals are going to be still in existence, I want Mitch. I trust that Marner's going to have longevity. He's, this elite vision. Yep. He's a hockey player.
Yeah.
I don't know that Willie's still going to be wanting to, drive the net and be strong and whatever in 7-8 years. I don't know that.
I still go Mitch.
But I'll tell you this. I've seen the playoffs the last couple of years, and I'll take the way Willie's looked.
For sure.
So short term, I might still be a Willie.
And I look over the body of work over the last few years. The one guy that's conscientious on his own zone.
100%.
Never, always is responsible. Penalty killer. Just
horse.
200 feet. I got to stick with Mitch Marner over Willie.
Yeah. Listen, that's the right answer. But he is going to get paid more than Willie, I would assume. Right? He's not going to get 11 if Willie gets 11.
Oh, Mitch?
Yeah.
Mitch is going up.
Right.
Yeah.
So
the price is going up.
This ain't apples to apples.
Yeah,
right?
no.
It's apples to apples plus 2 oranges.
Yes.
Both of them are going to haunt you when they leave, but they're just, to me, the upside of Marner haunting you as a fan. This, I'm talking from a fan's perspective, is a lot higher than Willie's haunt factor to me.
My last line in my article today in the Toronto Star was, if Kyle Dubas taught us anything on his way out, it's you can't have your cake and eat it too. Meaning that even if you found a way to sign Willie, Marner, Tavares, and Matthews moving forward, it's still too top heavy. It still leaves you vulnerable in the back end. It doesn't work.
It didn't work, and I'll say, so I agree. I can't sit here and say that it worked because it didn't work. I can't make that defense. I do think they got seriously screwed by the pandemic and the flat cap. The idea was that when they signed all these guys to the long-term deals, the cap goes up, you have room, you can do more things. They got in a position where they had to have shoestring guys, and it never happened for them. So it's tough to see that through.
I don't care. They could have
seen the pandemic coming.
No, they couldn't have seen the pandemic coming. They could have seen that it was coming out, and you needed to move somebody. That you didn't have to double and triple down on the 4 guys. You had plenty of time to not use the pandemic as an excuse and pick one. Especially the last few years when you've watched it over and over again and going, the imbalance just doesn't work. They need a $5 or $6 million defense back there.
I think they thought they could have afforded one.
Who's going? Pick one.
Yeah, no, and I agree that, listen, it didn't work out in the end, and were they to know that the cap was going to stay there, I bet you they would have handled things differently. They didn't. It didn't work. So, yeah, it may come down to now having to make some sort of choice, but tough spot.
Okay, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, Jason Bukala, former NHL scout, will get his thoughts on the value of Zadorov and Tanev, 2 names that we've heard a lot out of the Calgary Flames, and the link to the Toronto Maple Leafs through general manager Brad Treliving, and the potential of them becoming Toronto Maple Leafs. That and more when we return on the Real Kyper and Bourne Show. All right, let's pick this up where we left it off on the Toronto Maple Leaf Hour edition of the Real Kyper and Bourne Show. Let's welcome in Jason Bukala, former NHL scout, Sportsnet NHL analyst, and a very busy guy because he's watching all these games. And safe to say, when you watch hockey players, it's no different than the stock market, eh? It's up, it's down. It's in the toilet.
Time to buy, time to sell.
Yeah.
I mean,
And where?
Yeah, all the above.
And Book, where is the Calgary Flames in all of this? Because we saw them with a good win the other night, and there's some certain markets and certain teams you can't tip your hand too fast to the season ticket holder and just throw away the next 65 games or so. So where do you see Calgary in specific? That blue line led with some nice pieces that Brad Treliving could be interested in.
Very uncomfortable position to be in, guys. I mean, there's obviously the slow start. I mean, they would have to run the table just for some perspective here. They'd have to play at about a 735 clip, I think, between now and playoffs just to get in. Like if they decided that was the route they were going to go. You also have to figure that down the road even further, we're building a new rink. And, when we get into the new facility, it's like a shiny new toy at the beginning, but sooner than later, when the ticket price is going to be whatever it is at that time, you want to have a product on the ice that's going to fill the building. So this is a very uncomfortable position that Calgary's in. But as far as the back end goes, Kyper, I mean, obviously Tanev, obviously, Zadorov, Hanifin, clearly. I think that, the Leafs, we know the Leafs are swimming in these waters. I understand it. You understand it. We also understand what the fit would look like. We know it would be a good fit. But I'm having a real hard time putting the cost association together to make it fit on a variety of levels. Obviously, the salary cap's the first one, but then the cost of goods as well. And, I look back even to it all has to do with time. You talk about stock market examples. Again, let's talk about timing. Like in June, Montreal trades with Colorado for Alex Newhook. I know he's not a defenseman, but I'm just talking cost of goods here. Gianni Fairbrother, defensive prospect, a 2023 first, which was the 31st pick overall, and a 223 second, which turned out to be the 37th pick overall for Alex Newhook. So, that's just one example. The Provorov deal, a first and a second for Provorov. So, if you start to look at their draft capital, the Leafs, that is, even beyond, their salary cap constraints, tough puzzle to piece together at this time of year.
We've talked about, we sit here and bandy about trades because the Leafs aren't playing. It's kind of what we're doing right now. And trying to, classify their different assets in terms of value. They have a first round pick. They got, Nyes is a bright young prospect, Minton, Cowan. Kind of how do you power rank their assets in terms of what they could acquire, what they could move to acquire help?
The depth of it isn't great, guys. Like it's, when you're taking a look at, so you threw out those three names. I mean, I have zero appetite to trade Nyes right now.
Of course.
I mean, that's not in the discussion. Minton's coming off a fantastic training camp, but here's the thing with prospects. And, I've gone through this before when we've traded out prospects and, with the teams that I've been with, and don't fall too in love with your prospects until they arrive. And then when they arrive and they have a slot and they've earned the slot, now you're talking a whole different level of pedigree. So when we're talking about the Mintons and the Cowans, they're a feel-good story for now. They're coming off great training camps. They're their top assets. Like if we start going down to the Niemalas of the world or the Hirvanens of the world, we're really starting to get into categories that aren't going to drive value in a trade, and that's no disrespect to those players. I'm just trying to compare them to the other teams out there that are going to be shopping in the same, aisle at the supermarket for these defensemen. And it's a tough spot to be in. So you're looking at, at least you are looking at a first round pick. That's a given. I mean, historically, we already know that that's what, and if you're trading at this time of year, it's going to be uber expensive. It's already expensive at the trade deadline. But when you start trying to make deals in November, guys, this. It's very expensive to make a deal at this time of year because there's just not a lot of runway. So they're going to they can wait a couple weeks and the price just gets exponentially more expensive.
We're talking to Jason Bukala, former NHL scout. Can you speak of it? And if I'm not mistaken, Kyle Dubas left the Leafs with no second round picks for 3 years.
That sounds right.
Let me just ask you, in terms of a scouting staff, a general manager, a first round pick to a second round pick, the gap is minimal compared to how scouts view the difference between a second round pick and a third round pick. How difficult does Brad Treliving's job, because Dubas left him with no second round picks for the next 3 years, is my ask.
I'll double down on it. It's a great ask. It's a super example. I'm looking over the grid right now, Kyper. They also don't have their first in 25. So, no seconds for the next 3 years. The third that they own this year is the Islanders, who have been fairly pedestrian up to this point in time. So that could qualify as a feeling kind of like a late second, if you will. But they've got 2 first round picks, 24 and 26, and they have no seconds. I mean, this is really, really difficult. I can't stress enough to everybody that this is about as weak a position you can be sitting in compared to other potential suitors for the same players. This isn't a good spot. Imagine this. Imagine they throw it at the wall and they say, we're going to throw in our 2024 first and our 26 first, obviously lottery protected. But then you've got no picks in the first and the second round for the next 3 years. So if it doesn't go right, where are we a year from now when the three of us convene and we start having conversations if they get knocked out in the second round again?
Before you jump in,
No.
is this stuff that can really damage a franchise for the next 5-10 years?
Oh, yeah. 100%. Yeah. So I listened to Bourne before you guys went to break. And, here's where I'm conflicted because yes, there was the pandemic. Yes, it went flat cap. There's a lot of things that were out of control, humanly impossible to predict. Let's just say that, okay? But having said that, even in a perfect world, if the cap would have gone up to a certain level, I'm suggesting to you guys that you still, like money's money, but you're so top heavy with where you spent all your dollars to playing it out all over the roster. It makes it extremely difficult to piece this together. So Kyper, they are as close to being really good and as close to potentially falling off a cliff for 5 years. That's how it's a really tight rope they're walking right there.
The one thing I wonder too, in hearing you talk about this, is does it hinder your ability to get and keep good scouts? If you're trying to hire me and I'm a scout and I look at what you got and I go, I don't think I want to, maybe this isn't the place for me. Would that affect your ability to hire good people?
Not at all.
No.
It's like, you guys have been in the game at the highest level. It's an honor to be part of it, right? So I don't know a single scout pounding the pavement who says, geez, in on our picks, I don't want to go there.
Right.
And the reason is there's too much competition for these jobs. Now, I will say this, though. The flip side, the Leafs pro scouting department is pretty lean. And when you don't have picks and you're talking cap and you're talking about asset management and having to maybe find a college guy on the cheap or, find a guy in Europe, like right now when they're in Sweden, it's not just about dinners and parties. Like, trust me, their staff that's over there, they're looking at games as well. Like they're touring around doing some things. And we just came out of the Karela Cup and some other different tournaments that have gone on over there at that international break time.
Yeah.
So the pro scouts, it puts an enormous amount of pressure on them.
Hey, Jason, last week, speaking of Zadorov, him and his agent strategically leaked out the information while in Toronto.
Never seen that before.
What does that do to a management, a general manager and his staff when you hear that?
I think it makes them cringe on both sides. So in a perfect world, the Flames and the Leafs, let's just assume they were already having discussions ahead of that being leaked out the way that it was. It makes them cringe because it just, it can drive up the price in our market in Toronto. We've seen this before. Like, I know people think that we just talk like silly talk sometimes, but when somebody drops a bomb like that in Toronto, the price seems to go up for the Toronto Maple Leafs to acquire a player compared to some other cities. I know that sounds absolutely asinine when I spit it out there, but people in the league want to drive up the price for the Leafs to acquire an asset of theirs. It happens, guys. So perfect storm of chaos. I don't like it. I like Dan Milstein. Full disclosure. I have a great relationship with Dan, and I know what he's trying to do there. But I don't like it, and I also don't like the fact that the Flames players in the room have to carry that. The other guys haven't done that, so I'm not in favor of that either.
So you don't think it puts any pressure on Craig Conroy to get him out of the room because maybe the players are pissed off at him? Like, he just.
I think it does. I think that we're in a different world, though. I think that, Kyper, think back to like when you were playing, and this happened in Toronto, New York, or whatever, at a different time in the league. I think that as soon as you stick your neck out on the line like that, you're a cancer, and we're getting ready as quick as we possibly can. Nowadays, it's asset management, salary cap structure. What are we getting in return? There's so many moving parts that I think the game's changed. It's not sitting well with them. I mean, we're all competitors, right? I don't want some guy that I go into war with every night in the National Hockey League pulling the shoot on me. That's a horrible taste in my mouth. So I don't think it sits well with them, but I mean, it is what it is now. It's not perfect, that's for sure.
So if it's not Calgary that's going to help out this Toronto Maple Leafs team, do you agree that it is D from somewhere, somehow? Is that what they're hunting for? And any guys around the league that might stand out to you? I know it's not an easy question, but...
Yeah. Give our listeners a name here.
You got any fixes for us out there?
Gosh, it's tough. Like, okay, so let's just be crazy for a second. And it doesn't really fit the bill of a physical type of shutdown guy, but I'm curious to see how the negotiations play out with Brandon Montour in Florida. We'll see how that goes. He's a pending UFA. I know Florida's looking to build on their roster that they have right now. Listen, I don't know where we went. Like, I'm not an insider. I'm not privy to things, but the names that I wish we would have been talking about more in July when we convened was, the Soucies of the world or the Gudises of the world, these guys, and they would have come at a different price at that time, even if you would have overpaid. But 4-1 on Klingberg compared to, I think Susie's 2.9 or something. I'm doing this off the top of my head. I could be wrong, Borny. You probably have it in front of you. But, we could have combined if they would have decided to come. That's a big if. Again, I'm not an insider. But that's the type of thing I would have been aggressively going after, even if I had to overpay by $750 per player, maybe even $1 million. I would have added those two guys. So, hey, are they available out there right now? We all know they're not. The reason the noise is around Calgary as much as it is because they're pending UFAs. The teams, in going through a rough patch. Well, they're not just going through a rough patch now. They're lacking identity. And but other than that, geez, I don't know what else is out there. I can't sit here on top of my head and say, yeah, let's go get this guy.
Hey, Book, one name that we've heard out almost since training camp, and it's kind of fluctuated in terms of where his value is TJ Brody. I think it was Frank maybe suggested there might be a scenario where he could be bought out early in the year. I didn't see it. I still see value there. I think he'd be a great pickup for any team that needs that type of look for 18, 20 minutes a night. There's still value there. We don't necessarily see him long-term re-signing here, but could you flip his money out for a grittier horse, 1-for-1, cash in, cash out?
Unlikely. I don't see it happening. I just I wish I see the premise because, guys like I'm just trying to think of veteran guys in the league, and I'm not. So like a McDonough in Nashville, if they're not, a playoff team, like just guys that might be able to come in and play, a little bit different than Brody. The one thing with Brody, guys, is that I actually think he's dumbed down his game a bit to start the year this year. He's a little bit more composed, playing more between the dots in the defensive zone, not jumping out and kind of running out of gas, if you will, like not chasing the play as much. So I find like he's made some adjustments. And the real thing here is that, again, when you break it down, his adjustments and where he sits right now compared to where you go shop, is it that much of an upgrade? And right now I don't see it, Kyper. I guess we'd have to circle back. I think we're going to be circling back on this for the next 3 weeks pretty religiously, because this stretch of games coming out of Sweden after this, they're having meetings right now. They're having resets. They're looking at things. They're practicing. They're taking all stock of what they have and what they want. They kind of already know what they want, but it's going to play out pretty aggressively when they get back in the next 2 weeks, especially if a team like Calgary over their next 5 games goes like 1-4.
Great stuff, Book. Really appreciate your time. Thanks for doing this.
Anytime, fellas. Have a great day today.
Thanks, Books. Appreciate it.
Does Book get his own music when
he just
leaves?
gets one guitar riff. Da-na-na-na-na.
Derek's just like itching to get us off the air, I think.
Got a box of Timbits he's looking to get to.
Maybe Book, we should get music for Book.
Just a single,
something.
I actually like if people can have individual goal songs in Buffalo, we can do it for guests.
Yeah, Doug would get jealous for sure.
I love Books, but he made me sad.
Yeah, you don't feel better about things?
Okay.
Well, no, it's a wake-up call.
Do you think
it's a wake-up call for Leaf fans?
What you didn't like? The fact that he said without assets moving forward, this is maybe go big or go home time for the Toronto Maple Leafs in the next couple of years.
And even if you go big after that, you're going to go home.
You're eventually going home. Yeah. It's just how big you go before that.
When he said it and I looked over at you, you kind of went white a little bit.
Yeah. Hey? It's hot in here. I should be going red.
Did that surprise you a little bit to hear him talk about lack of assets, setting them up for?
I just don't like. I'm trying not to think about 5 years from now, thinking about the Leafs being good in the next couple here. But yeah, it's crazy how fast time goes.
Not a sports fan anymore, eh? Just to focus on the good hockey team you have.
Well, are they?
Well, whatever there.
Okay.
All right, give us an update on the global series between Detroit and Ottawa, because the Leafs are sitting back saying, hey, we got Detroit tomorrow. Beat the crap out of each other for a few more minutes.
With 1 minute to go, it is still 4-4. Ottawa on a power play, it looks like.
The Leafs are loving that. All right, we're back after these words for our National Hour. Let's welcome everybody in on the National Hour of the Real Kyper and Bourne Show.
Welcome.
JB says welcome.
Yes.
He's Sammy McKee. We've got upstairs Derek Brandeo, Jen Rolnick. This hour of Real Kyper and Bourne brought to you by Bet365. A lot of top stories around the National Hockey League in this country. We got Edmonton and Vancouver. We've got Winnipeg getting hot as well.
Oh, yeah.
We got some good storylines going. We've got the Ottawa Senators and the Detroit
currently
in overtime, which draws a 3-point game, which only clouds everything in the Eastern Conference. Sean Reynolds will join us in a few minutes to talk about those Winnipeg Jets and Kyle Connor.
Time to give him some love.
Lighting it up. 3 points the other night versus the Devils. A little later on in the show, we've got some Gary Bettman clips as he addressed the media in Stockholm.
I had a tough time getting through him today, boys.
That'll...
he's so condescending. Oh, man. God. Yes.
I say that like I don't know.
So if I get him, if we get him on the show here, you're just gonna...
I'll just plug my ears.
Tell him?
I'll plug my ears.
Sam, you'll step outside. We'll do the questioning.
Okay, tons. But we saw 2 games last night where both Edmonton and Vancouver found a way to hang in there and get their 2 points.
Now the league leader in points is not 1, but 3 Vancouver Canucks. Pettersson, Miller, and Hughes all have 26 points, and they're leading the league together. How insane is that?
The Western Conference leading.
Vancouver Canucks. I mean, what were the odds? We need to go back a month.
In our Leaf edition an hour ago, we were talking Willie Nylander, potentially being one of those guys that could sneak in there as a top 10.
Buzzkill Billy.
No buzzkill. No buzzkill. But our boy Sammy, I believe, suggested that he'd have no problem trading Willie Nylander for JT Miller.
When?
Did you not mention you?
I like JT Miller, but I wouldn't do it.
You wouldn't do it?
I would have done it. No, I don't think there's ever been a time I would have done that. But I would consider it now, for sure.
I'm watching JT Miller, and again last night, I get scores, passes.
You like his attitude more than that.
Well, listen, I saw him a good portion of his career as this guy that found a way to kind of make it look like he was a me, I guy. And I don't see that. And is it just maturity? Is it Rick Tocchet? But this guy's turned into a real leader for the Vancouver Canucks. There's times I still see him melt down a little bit.
Yeah, but that's
good.
It's
if he can pick and choose when he does it, it just adds, I guess, to his game.
I've written before about how when you start positively, people get the good vibes going, and you're not squeezing the stick. You're just you keep your mind a little bit more open. And the Canucks have had a lot of talent that seems to have been burdened by the organization over the past few years. They almost seem freed up this year, and man, they are tough to stop. They're the league's leading offense, which is impressive.
Yeah, makes that Leafs win the more impressive on Saturday.
So you wouldn't trade JT Miller for Willie, but they're
now?
younger. He's older than Willie.
Right now, what's his he's got that long contract, right? Didn't he sign
he's only at 8.5.
Yeah, for 100 years. Wasn't that? Remember last year how big of a hot button conversation that was?
Yes.
Remember it was like,
they were all but laughed at for signing that deal.
Mad. Well, yeah, because they signed it and he was immediately not.
And the team was looking like they were going the other direction. So and what are you committing to Miller for?
And wasn't there times where they were talking about, maybe they could trade it?
Oh, yeah.
Remember that? We had those conversations.
Waffled. I'm sure they waffled.
He's 8 even until 29-30. He makes $8 million for the next lot of years.
Yeah, no, he's worth that. That's for sure. He's leading the league in points.
Yeah, it's pretty decent.
Good value.
Last night we saw the game-winning goal from the current captain beat a goal from their former captain in Bo Horvat. What were your thoughts about going into the game for Bo and what you actually saw?
I just need to comment on Matthew Barzal's defense on Quinn Hughes in overtime, and that was vile.
That was a nice finish, though.
It was a nice finish, but okay, everyone's got a guy. My guy's coming up the ice, one pass, and he was like, look, a hockey puck.
Yeah, I thought I thought it was handled really well by the Vancouver fans.
And Horvat. Horvat said he was frustrated with the organization on the way out. Loved his time there. He had a tear before warm-up. He scores a goal.
He went full Knobloch in the.
He went full Chris Knobloch. Yeah, we got two cry fests this week. Love it.
All right, as promised, Sean Reynolds, Sportsnet reporter in Winnipeg, joining us on the Real Kyper and Bourne show. Sean, how are you? Is this one of those weeks where Winnipeg Jet players are going, hey, listen, I get the storylines in Edmonton and Vancouver, but hey, don't forget about us.
Yeah. Where's the love for Winnipeg? It's always what people in Winnipeg are asking at all times. You know what? You could never get enough attention. People will have been saying for years that Kyle Connor's an underrated guy. I've always argued in the past his career numbers are almost exactly the same as Jake Gensel. So they're very similar players in what they produce. And, Jake Gensel isn't that guy that we're constantly hearing about all the time. So listen, I'm always kind of trying to calm Winnipeg sports fans down and let them know that, the eyes turn to the places where the hot players are. And for that reason, I think people should be turning and looking towards Winnipeg, because what's going on right now with this team, not only what they're doing in the standings, the wins that they win are impressive. The losses are not ugly losses. They seem to be getting better and learning a lot of lessons in those losses. This is the team, I guess I'd put it like this. The one kind of Achilles heel for the Winnipeg Jets so far is when they've played upper echelon teams, the likes of Dallas Stars the other night. They've lost twice already to the Vegas Golden Knights, kind of got their butts whipped by the LA Kings. They don't seem to be in that stratosphere of upper echelon NHL teams yet, but I think right now, if there was a light heavyweight division in the NHL, the Winnipeg Jets would be given that division a pretty good run right now.
Yeah, I mean, lots of good things. Obviously, Connor's numbers are one thing. Cole Perfetti's a guy who seems to be having a good year. Tell us about what's gone right. And then, if you want to seg maybe into, I know Connor Hellebuyck hasn't had the best year. Just give us the high and low end of the Jets so far this season.
Well, the high end for me is the duo of Kyle Connor and Mark Scheifele. Yeah. I don't think Kyle Connor is doing what he's doing if Mark Scheifele isn't playing the way he's playing now. These guys have added a layer of defensive responsibility to their game that we probably haven't seen in the past with them, and yet they've got better offensively. And that was Rick Bowness really preaching to his team that the way he wanted them to get offense was off good defense, and they're doing that right now. And I'll say this, these two have a chemistry going right now. Blake Wheeler from around 2015 to 2020 was kind of under the radar, one of the best passers, if not the best passer in the game. Mark Scheifele has reached that level of what he is right now. If Kyle Connor is open for a fraction of a second, Mark Scheifele's finding him, and it's in his wheelhouse, and then often it's in the back of the net. So that duo is going like gangbusters right now. Cole Perfetti, you mentioned him. Secondary scoring that we're getting from this team is starting to pick up. They had a little bit of a slow start. The true power of this team is their third line. Adam Lowry's line will punch you in the mouth, take your lunch money. And then what they haven't done in years past is go down the other end of the ice and score goals. Wasn't that long ago, those three members of that line were first or 1 point off of being the leaders in scoring on that team. So they're putting the puck in the net. And transitioning to Connor Hellebuyck, as you asked me to do, that's the very interesting part about this Winnipeg Jets team. I think we all expect at some point Connor Hellebuyck is going to wake up and return to what we expect from him. What the Jets are doing right now and looking very impressive on a lot of nights, a really impressive win over the New Jersey Devils the other night, they're doing it without Connor Hellebuyck being anywhere near capable of what Connor Hellebuyck is capable of. So right now, the Winnipeg Jets, they're a very good team. They've got potential to get a lot better, and that could be scary for a lot of the other teams in the league.
We're talking to Sean Reynolds, Sportsnet reporter. I'm Nick Kypreos, two guys that can relate to being punched in the mouth and having their lunch money stolen, Sammy McKee and Justin Bourne. When I look at the defense, Sean,
not wrong.
When I look at the defense, I see talent in Neil Pionk, Morrissey, DeMello. I just don't see big. This is still, I still see big buff somewhere in that uniform. And is there thought about finding ways to make this blue line bigger? Dylan's there, but, Logan Stanley's at 6'7", and he can't find a regular situation there. Is there any talk that this blue line still is not big enough to compete in the West?
I think there should be talk about that. I think the vast majority of people will tell you that this team is probably a second line center and a top four big rugged defenseman who can also move the puck away from being a true contender in the West. And I would be in that group of people who think that. This is the tricky part about this, right? Brendan Dillon's a big, strong guy, and he can make you pay, right? Dylan Sandberg is coming along and quietly having a really, really great year for the Winnipeg Jets. No one's talking about him, and there's a reason. It's just he's not making mistakes. He's not flashy, but he's not standing out in a bad way. But Nate Schmidt is looking like he's struggled off and on this year. Neil Pionk, he's again off and on. This is a guy at one point who was looking like he was breaking out as an offensive defenseman. Josh Morrissey has come along and stolen that mantle and ran with it on this team. But I hear exactly what you're saying. They're not the biggest defense. I think last year that was exposed really, really badly in the playoffs against the Vegas Golden Knights. And so I subscribe to your theory that I think a lot of people expected there to be changeover on the Jets blue line. Never mind the fact a lot of people thought maybe Connor Hellebuck would be gone and Mark Scheifele, and that people expected a lot of change. Kevin Cheveldayoff is a patient guy. And at times like this, it looks like it really pays off. But at other times, that patience looks like inactivity and has cost them in the past. If this team has true designs on contending for a Stanley Cup, they probably have to get bigger on the back end. But it's not just a matter of getting bigger. You got to find, that size with skill. And we all know those guys grow on trees. Hey, it's easy to solve that problem, right? Well, if it was easy to solve that problem, it would have been solved a long time ago. And that's the big problem the Winnipeg Jets find themselves dealing with.
Sean, I'm going to read you a text from a friend of mine because he'll know you'll be able to answer it better than me. Is P.L. Dubois wildly overrated / overpaid? He's 4 goals and 4 assists in LA right now. You saw him a little bit. What are your thoughts on what's gone on there with Dubois?
So what I saw from him, so when he signed that deal, I thought, okay, well, that's the kind of deal that I think the Winnipeg Jets were thinking, I don't think they would have signed that deal.
Yeah.
Pierre-Luc Dubois, from what we covered him, has the ability to entirely take over games and does so at certain amounts of time. He was always among the league leaders in both penalties taken and penalties drawn. And at some point last season, it was heading towards like the halfway point of the season, he was a point per game player, right? If you get that guy who leads the league in taking and drawing penalties, and he's a point per game guy, that is a massively valuable player. The problem with Pierre-Luc Dubois, from what I saw of his time in Winnipeg, and I would think was, explained a lot of his time in Columbus, is he can be wildly inconsistent and fall asleep for long stretches of time. So I'm not willing to say that the experiment in LA has failed and it's over, it's because this could just be one of those times that he goes to sleep. And if he wakes up and is the Pierre-Luc Dubois, who's that beast who just kind of takes over games, and he does it in the playoffs for the LA Kings, maybe it'll be worth it for them. But the one thing I've always thought about Pierre-Luc Dubois is he's shown flashes of being one of those guys who could be one of the upper echelon game changer type players in the NHL. When he's on his game, he just isn't that often enough to deserve that title of being among the league's best. So for me, that contract was a little steep, because that contract for sure was paying for him for what they believe he can become and not what he is. What he is up until this point is not reflective of that contract. He's got to get better to earn it, in my mind.
It's amazing what winning does in not feeling like you're missing anybody. Pierre-Luc Dubois in Winnipeg. We were just speaking moments ago about Bo Horvat going back into Vancouver and how polite the fans were. And it's easy to be polite when you're a win away from leading the Western Conference the next day. And, right? Don't miss him so much.
Yeah, I don't think there's a lot of people missing Pierre-Luc Dubois. And here's the interesting part is the return for that. Gabe Vilardi, he popped in, had a couple good games to start off the season, and then was injured and is expected to be out for about 6 weeks, although he's skating again. Maybe they'll accelerate that timetable. But I mean, Alex Iafallo steps onto that top line and is helping that top line of the Jets, along with Kyle Connor and Mark Scheifele, to be one of the hottest lines in the NHL right now. Defensively responsible guy, but is constantly creating the chaos in front of the net that gets the eyes of the defenders turned towards him and turned away from Kyle Connor and Mark Scheifele, which allows Kyle Connor to hide. He's one of the best guys in the league at disappearing and reappearing in dangerous spots. And Mark Scheifele has always been a load to handle. He's able to fight off 1-2 guys at a time. The more guys that are stuck in front of the net dealing with Alex Iafallo is just so good for that line. They've really found their chemistry. So who knows what Gabe Vilardi's going to do here. But right now, it would look like a 1-for-1 trade of Alex Iafallo for Pierre-Luc Dubois would be a massive win for the Winnipeg Jets. And that doesn't count the fourth-line center that they picked up in Rasmus Kupari as well. So we're about to see when Gabe Vilardi gets back just how much deeper that makes this team and how good they are. But again, I'm not sleeping on Pierre-Luc Dubois, especially with all the, that's a deep, deep team at the center ice position out in LA. If he gets going and those three centers get going at the same time, that's a hard team to stop. So they're not, I don't think they're too worried about right now. They're worried about down the road. And if he can show up down the road, they'll be in a good spot.
So with the division that the least Canadian teams play in, we probably don't talk about the Central as much. Maybe you could handicap what you think from what you've seen so far on Dallas and Colorado, St. Louis, Arizona. Those are probably the teams that are going to be the competitors for the Jets, I would say, in their quest to make the playoffs.
Yeah, so let's start with the guys below the Jets in the standings, the St. Louis and the Arizonas of the world. Young, exciting teams. I love that kind of hockey, guys. I love when a team is kind of turning things around. I've been waiting for years for Ottawa to do it. Buffalo's another team. I've seen them stockpiling talent. I've been waiting for them to kind of turn the corner. These two teams, the St. Louis Blues, seem to be turning the corner faster than I thought they would have. Arizona, it's nice to see them finally picking themselves up off the mat after years. But when I've seen the Jets play these teams, they're not in the same caliber as the Winnipeg Jets. The Jets break those teams by the end of games. They just can't hang with them. Their structure is not as rigid and as well executed as the Jets are. I don't see them, because they're young teams, getting to the point where they learn so much about it that they're getting beyond a team like that. So I really do think, if Minnesota wakes up, that's a team that I think you have to worry about. They had a slow start last year and then came storming on at the end of the year and almost won the Central. So I'm not counting that team out yet. Dallas was a measuring stick game the other night for the Winnipeg Jets. And to me, they clearly looked like they were a step ahead of the Jets. I count them in that heavyweight division that I was referring to earlier on. Colorado is an interesting one to me because they had, a big win last night. A couple of games ago, they had a massive loss where they allowed 8 goals against. Colorado, to me, I've never seen a team as dominant as I saw them on the way to the Stanley Cup a couple of years ago. So that's in their DNA. Their defense is ridiculously stacked. But they kind of got tired because of the injuries down the stretch last year, and it cost them in the playoffs. I'm wondering if they're just that team now that kind of hangs around during the season and knows when to turn it on at the end of the year. If they are, I think they're as dangerous as anyone in the West, including the likes of, the Vancouver Canucks or the Vegas Golden Knights. But you never know. I wasn't expecting them to lose to the Seattle Kraken last year. So maybe they've unlocked something in them that is a weakness that they haven't solved. Allowing 8 goals in a game kind of suggests there's problems that still exist there. But I still see them finishing ahead of the Jets in the Central Division.
One more for me, Sean, and I know we've had you on the show in the past, and we have talked about the economic challenges in Winnipeg, and every team feels it for sure. But in this instance with Winnipeg, how much extra pressure do you think that we haven't really seen before is on ownership or management to keep the fan base that they already still have there engaged based on these challenges?
Well, like anyone else, it's massive. I don't necessarily see a fan base that is not engaged here. I mean, I've said this in the past, and I know that the Jets ownership has a different viewpoint of this, and I know that they really feel that they have to have a winner in order for people to show up. I don't agree with that, and I think that if you're a hockey market that says people aren't going to show up to this building if we're not winning, then you're in trouble, because not every team is going to win every single year. At some point, things are going to dip. And so if the Winnipeg Jets think they have to have a winner, then what's going to happen when they have a loser, right? I think that what we've seen here is And this is anecdotally, and I've heard this over and over and over again. So by no means is this a study that I've read or done or anything like this, but anecdotally, over and over and over again, I heard that from fans that had season tickets since day one in 2011 up until now. They've foregone buying a car for their family because they put that money into the Jets and season tickets every single night for all those years. And I think what happened was when seats started opening up, the way that they were handling things is people were getting into the building for cheaper than the season ticket holders were getting in. And soon enough, the season ticket holders were looking and saying, why am I doing this? Other guys are getting in for cheaper. And it's the other thing, like in Calgary, I think it was last year, maybe they do this every year, but their season ticket holders get a brand new jersey every year, right? Like you got to make sure that your season ticket holders feel appreciated and feel exalted, right? Because you are the guys who are laying out the money to make sure there's stability for the organization. I think that there was a little bit of a detachment there between the season ticket holders and the organization. I think that there's some people who are miffed because of it. I think that the organization has to reach back to those people, say, where did we go wrong and what can we do to make it right? And until that happens, I think you're going to continue to see the 2,000, 3,000, 4,000 empty seats in the Canada Life Center that we're seeing right now.
Last one for me, just a quick thought. Did I see Nick Ehlers fight the other day? What's going on there?
Oh yeah. Man, it's just like fourth or fifth or something.
Is it really?
Like yeah.
I think his first
one was against Ryan Getzlaf a number of years
I
ago.
remember that. Yeah.
And he's always going against a bigger guy.
Some giant.
He's not going against heavyweights, right? Like he's not tapping Nick Kypreos on the shoulder and saying, "Let's go at this." Like, he's grabbing guys. He's grabbing guys and he's doing his thing, and he never really loses the fight. He's a wiry guy. I think that it's usually a sign that Nick Ehlers is getting going. Now, I don't think that he's a guy who should be doing it over and over again. He doesn't need to break a hand or anything like that. The funny part about that is his mom and sister were in the stands, and they said, "You're not going to fight tonight, are you?" And he said, "I think I'm done with the fighting." And then sure enough, that's exactly when the fights are going to come find you. But hey, he does it standing up for Vladislav Nemesnikov, who is a quiet soldier on this team that the players absolutely love. I know a lot of people want to see fighting rooted out of the game. I know people get upset with me when I make comments like that. Having played, I never played what Nick did. Nick will be able to tell you about this, but having played senior hockey in levels like that, when you get a guy who stands up for you when something has done something terrible to you, that builds brotherhood, that builds kinship. And the Winnipeg Jets, I think it's a sign that they're all on the same page, because Adam Lowry's done it a bunch of times this year. Brendan Dillon's done it a bunch of times. These guys have each other's back, and they show it time and time again in moments like that, just like Nick Ehlers did.
Hey, Sportsnet just signed a massive deal with MMA, didn't they? So
yeah, UFC, baby.
Seems to be an appetite everywhere for that sort of stuff. Hey, Sean, great stuff, man. I really appreciate your time. Awesome.
Yeah. Love being on with you guys. Thanks for having me on.
Thanks, Sean. Appreciate it.
Sean Reynolds. And hopefully they, whatever issues are going on out there, they can start a new consecutive streak of sellouts, because it was great. It was magical when they came back.
Sean makes a great point, though, that it's going to ebb and flow in every city with wins and losses, and you can't just bank on having a winner to keep people in the building. It's just not sustainable in a salary cap league.
Yeah.
So,
I talked to someone from Winnipeg at the Hockey Hall of Fame on Monday, and they said it's kind of unlike just one owner to a season ticket. There's a lot of people with packages of season tickets too, and they share.
Oh, yeah.
So if one leaves or bails, it puts a tremendous amount of stress on three other partners of season tickets.
Right.
So unfortunately, I think that's what happened too.
Well, and I know initially when they were coming back, I had friends that were like, can you get online and try to get these tickets? It was like, first click, first serve type of thing. And so I had friends in Calgary that bought 2 season tickets. They didn't even live in Winnipeg anymore, but they were like, just in case it's so hard to get these, I know I can get rid of them. If that demand is softened, there'd be no reason to keep those tickets. So I could see things changing.
Remember when Ehlers and Thornton got into it? When Thornton was on the Leafs? It was like during the COVID season.
Yes.
And he was like almost crying in the box. He was trying to fight him. That was actually probably my favorite Joe Thornton Leafs memory.
Ooh, that's too bad.
Not a ton. He did score.
Not a ton.
He did score against the Habs in the
That's
playoffs.
not exactly a Hall of Fame moment there.
No, it was not. Yeah, playing on the top line with Matthews and Marner. Boy. Anyways, game time?
Game time.
Oh, I started crying. It's game time. Presented by Bet365. Visit the app for the latest odds and find out why it's never ordinary at Bet365. Must be 19 plus. Ontario only. Play responsibly. Now, you were mentioning JT Miller and how he's leading the league in points. What do you think his odds are for the MVP?
JT Miller MVP has got to be like 40-1.
80-1.
80-1. Yeah.
80-1 Any value there?
There's value there, yeah.
No, he's not.
Playing on a good
Really
Canucks
hard.
team with good players.
Still kind
I
of
don't
a
think he's gonna win
centerman trophy.
By the way, Timmy Stu scored with 2 seconds
Did you see
left
the
in
goal?
OT. No.
He batted it out of midair.
Oh, did
Like
he?
it came way up high and he like full baseball swinged it into the net.
So what a show for the fans
yeah,
overseas.
yeah.
Get a 5-4 OT finish.
But yeah, I'm really pandering to our Vancouver audience talking about JT Miller's MVP odds here. But like to me, I look at that. It's like a guy that's having an awesome year, the narrative based thing, guy that's coming back.
The question
He's
is,
tied with Quinn right now.
Yeah.
the bigger question is, has Connor completely opened this up
100%.
for game 75-82 finish for this award?
You watched Connor last night?
Yeah,
A couple of speed bursts.
better.
Like it's not. Can you get value on Connor McDavid yet?
better.
Are we at that point?
No, he's still
He's
up
still
there.
favorite. He's still favorite.
Yeah, he's
Plus
still up
300.
there.
Yeah.
But
They're smarter than
It's-
they've
What about
watched
the
him play
Rocket?
hockey.
What about the Rocket?
well, hold on for a second.
Yeah.
I'm going to throw out another name for you for MVP.
Mm.
Sid.
Oh.
Boy.
He ain't done, boys.
Well, it's funny you mentioned that, Kyper, because I looked up his odds just as you guys were talking to Sean.
What a producer.
He is 100-1 to win the MVP.
Sidney Crosby's 100-1.
Yeah.
Why wouldn't you take that?
Throw a couple of bucks at that. Oh, I vote. I can't.
Oh, you can't. Yeah.
I forget every show. But no,
It's-
that is a very tempting, right?
He's-
For $10 at
Just
that.
stay healthy, Sid, and you should be in for your 100 points.
If Sid gets 90, 95, 100 points and plays Sid Crosby defense and
They make the playoffs, like when everyone
and
was kind of
McDavid
expecting them
and Matt,
to.
Like we know what Sid would do. We're just not sure over the course of 80 games if Gino's got another 85 points in him, and is Carlson. I think Carlson's on a pace
He's
for
back.
another 90.
Yeah, he's
85, 90
he's hot.
points.
He's gotten hot.
Like if those guys hang in there and produce like that, and they get some goaltending, why wouldn't you think Sid wouldn't be in the mix
No, you're right.
down the stretch?
It's 100%
fair.
right.
And it's also a narrative-based award,
Yeah.
and everyone knows the name Sidney Crosby. If
Yeah.
he is in the mix, it's
And
like the
it's-
Bergeron Selke. He's
I was going to
gonna
say, almost like a lifetime achievement award at this point, where it's like he's having another incredible year, down year for. I am going to bet that. Okay, next one here. Looking at some of the games tonight, trying to find value. I'm starting to think that the Lightning might suck.
there's a lot of good players on that team to make that.
They're now
conclusion.
they've lost 3 in a row. They're a -7 or 8 goal differential. I think they are
good.
outside of a playoff spot. I've
Listen.
watched watched them play. They're not getting goaltending, so maybe once Vasilevsky comes back, it's a different conversation. But I'm looking at them. They're playing against the Chicago Blackhawks in Chicago tonight. It's a bit of a long shot,
This
but
is mental.
Chicago to win with a Bedard goal is plus 425. And I love watching the Blackhawks because I love watching Connor Bedard. He's the next, great hope for Canadian hockey, and he's just a
Can he
stud.
play
So
goal?
now, I have to tell you that I have great, great fear of American hockey.
Yeah.
And I get really excited when we still put out the best guy.
Yeah.
And it's like he's the next best guy, and it's like I need him to be good for like my mental health.
Yeah.
So it's like I'm really rooting for Connor Bedard. I really love him.
Yeah.
So,
Okay.
there you go.
It's really hard for me to suggest that a team with Kucherov, Point, Hedman, Stamkos
Hagel, Paul, Sergachev, Sorelli,
I'm sorry.
right?
Vasilevsky.
It's just really, I can't do it.
You shouldn't do it.
I can't.
Okay.
And
I'll be the first one to do it. I'll sound like an idiot or I'll sound really smart, but I don't believe in him.
Just show me an average Vasilevsky when he comes back, and I'll have no problem telling you this team's going nowhere fast.
Okay.
But not yet.
Okay. That's fair. And the other one I had for value, Vancouver's playing in Calgary tonight, second half of back-to-back. They're plus 130 in Calgary tonight.
Ooh.
So they're a pretty big underdog. You got to assume that'll be the Smith, bit of a road trip or flying to Calgary after their game last night or whatever. So maybe that's why, but pretty good value on the literal the best team in the Western Conference at plus 130. You're probably not going to get that a bunch.
Plus money and good teams. You like those bets.
Yep. So that was Game Time, presented by Bet365. Visit the app for the latest odds and find out why it's never ordinary at Bet365. Must be 19 plus. Ontario only. Please play responsibly.
Okay, we're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we'll get through some NHL news and notes. Adam Ernie fined the maximum for an elbow. I want to get your thoughts on it.
Gordy.
Justin, and we'll pick a little bit of Gary Bettman's address to the media in Stockholm. Talked Ottawa Senators, World Cup, I think a Hockey Canada investigation, NHL draft. The traditional draft is over.
Oh, boy.
We'll get into that and more on the Real Kyper and Bourne Show when we return.
Just watching Jimmy Stu.
Ottawa Senators, Tim Stützle.
There it is.
What have I been saying all these years?
Stützle.
I never.
What do you say?
I have no idea. I thought it was both sounded great.
So what?
Timmy Stew.
He swiped it out of the air.
Yep.
Yeah, he hit basically a single through the infield.
Yep.
For the game winner.
Yep.
Jay fans are going, where was that?
Yeah.
Where was that down the stretch
With
for us?
runners on, we could have used a couple of those this year.
All right. Did you have the Oilers down and out last night?
I watched
a
lot of the game, and I will say there's a point in the second period where I thought
they look bad.
They look the same as throughout the year.
Yes.
I kept waiting for Knobloch's there. They've won a couple. Here come the Oilers, and it was just like not there. And then I went to bed, and it turns out it happened.
Our Louis DeBrusque on the call emphasized Darnell Nurse doing pretty much a Superman to save an empty net goal that would have sealed the deal for Seattle, and how that ignited the comeback led by Evander Kane,
who scored and then he scored and then he scored. Natural hat trick to lead the Oilers.
Love that.
To their 5th win of the season. Here come the Oilers. I was trying to be like Jack Michaels down the stretch there.
That Knobloch's doing a great job.
Oh, has he? Guys,
what a great job.
What a bunch of changes he made there.
Undefeated.
If they go on to win every game from here on in and set NHL record, would Jay Woodcroft be part of that record?
I don't know how that would work. But I do feel bad because I don't want to make fun of Chris Knobloch. It's not his fault that the team was already pretty good.
He won the first game of this streak so far. Are they sharing whatever is going on right now?
Kojak Adams winners?
This is
probably not.
I'll tell you right now, this is the exact same winning streak if old Jay's behind the bench. Knobloch could be a great coach. He could be one of the best coaches in the NHL, but there is no difference if Jay's still standing.
I feel bad for him. How do you separate yourself? The team has been to the conference final and won playoff rounds very recently. How do you separate yourself and say, look at what I've done with this group? I guess just do it again from where they were. I don't know.
Go a step further. Win Lord Stanley's mug.
Did we not see a hit to the head out of Adam Ernie last night?
You gave him the old chicken wing. It's actually pretty bad. To be honest, I'd be totally fine with that having been a suspendable play.
I think it really just has to come down to if a guy's hurt or not, if he gets up. I don't know. It's just an elbow penalty unless he doesn't get up.
Well, I mean, it was at least a major then. He clipped him pretty good. So didn't like the play.
Yeah. I've seen.
Go watch a game.
I've seen stuff be called worse than get suspended. It just didn't look good. He skated right by him, looked at him, and bang, elbowed him right in the head. My headphones went out. But.
Why do you have that style headphone? Anyway.
All right, let's go to Gary Bettman. Anything in particular that we're going to hear Sammy, because I didn't go through your clips. I'm sorry.
I would like to hear the stuff on old Andlauer talking about how he feels wronged by what happened.
I would say that the most compelling stuff is definitely on the Senators. There's 2 clips from Gary, the first 2 on your list there, from on Andlauer 1 and 2. We could start with the first one if you want, and then we can go from there.
All right. Our first Kippers Clipper on the national show, Commissioner Gary Bettman on Michael Andlauer.
I'm not going to get into a public debate with Michael Andlauer. I don't think that's constructive for him, me, or the league. I'm more than comfortable with what we did, and maybe on reflection, Michael will be, if he's not already, more comfortable with the way things were handled.
Oh, I would hate that if I were Andlauer. Don't you suggest that now I've changed my mind while I'm not there to...
I don't want to get in a public spat with Michael Andlauer, but let's get in a public spat.
What he said. I bet he feels differently now that he's had time to cool down his little emotions and think, oh, that would make me mad.
You want to go to the second one before we address this?
Let's play the second clip there, Derek.
Well, I consider the matter closed, but I'm always open for dialogue with owners on any subject they want at any point in time. Doesn't mean that we're inviting it, and it doesn't mean that there would be a change. But, you know, Michael's always free to talk to me as he is, and he's always free to express himself, as he did, even if I happen not to agree.
Stay on the aisle, second row.
Okay, Gary, last year I asked you with this little Stanley Cup why you didn't bring the real one. You brought the one, so credits to you.
We want to start our show again, Derek. I had heard that Commissioner Gary Bettman wanted to whack Shane Pinto a lot more than he did.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Really?
And he has to
send a message.
He needed to be talked down to 41 games.
Well, yeah, I mean
there was enough for him to really, I think he already did, but really, really set an example from Shane Pinto.
But to me, what he's talking about there is the first for the Dodonov thing, right? He's talking about that punishment, and that's what Andlauer...
No, is this all... Okay, I thought it was on Pinto.
Yeah, no, it was on Andlauer and him talking about the first round pick.
Because to me, he says this, to me, this is closed or whatever, but I would invite him to talk to me or whatever.
Yeah. And he spoke publicly.
I feel like the door's open to change their mind on that one. I still feel like it is.
If Lou Lamoriello with... Kovalchuk.
And that was brought up in the Ian Mendez asked both the questions about Ottawa, and he followed up asking about that exact thing.
Okay.
And that's where that answer came from.
Right.
We have a clip on Shane Pinto. We have 2, actually.
Ooh. Okay.
But if you want to play the number 6 for us, Derek, Gary Bettman clip 6 on Shane Pinto.
What's clear is there was no betting on NHL hockey, but there are lots of ways that you can involve yourself in sports betting that are inappropriate, and most of them are common sense. Okay, without telling you what Shane did or didn't do, if you're in a jurisdiction where you're not supposed to be betting, you shouldn't be betting. If you're betting on a platform that says you shouldn't be sharing an account, you shouldn't be sharing an account. If you are in a jurisdiction where people shouldn't be placing bets for you, you shouldn't be doing that. I mean, there's a litany of things that, as a matter of common sense, people would know. And the players get briefed on this annually by security. We do briefings on it at the rookie orientation program. There's no surprise here.
Okay, Gary, you lost our audience when he said common sense. There is no common sense.
Well, common sense would be not have a gambling sponsor as your helmet sponsor.
But he also just said that a third party placed a bet on Shane Pinto's account. He mentioned jurisdiction, which implies he was
at the rink.
Also, if he was at the rink at that point, maybe Pinto saying someone placed a bet on my account while I was at the rink. It wasn't me placing it.
He kind of just told us what happened.
Pinto, is just at the end of the day, a very slippery slope. It always has been. It always will be. And
what's slippery about it, though?
What's slippery about it?
Don't bet.
You got buddies. Every day you talk to your buddies.
Hey, Kip, would you let me use your account to gamble?
No.
Not a chance.
Listen, you know where the slippery slope is? Players trainers, coaches. What's stopping anybody from making a phone call and saying, who's playing tonight? Who's hurt? Who's feeling good? Who just had a baby and didn't sleep the night before? Slippery slope.
For trainers, I mean,
sharing information.
Yes. But it's not for
slippery.
NHL players. This is not confusing to me. You can't, to me, Pinto may have plausible deniability based on this third-party thing, but you can't let people bet on your account.
No, you can't, but you can also, share information so you can bet on your own account. And what's the difference?
You share information so they can bet on their account or whatever. Yeah.
It's just a slippery slope. My whole
I'll
point
hear that.
is,
That's fair.
is that there will always be such a gray area.
Well, guys are going to do it, and guys are going to get caught for sure. This is going to happen. It's happened in the NFL multiple times this year. I mean, yes, it is.
Yeah.
But I don't know. How new any of that is. You turn on Netflix right now, and you can go ahead and watch a few documentaries about players betting on sports. I mean,
yeah. But it just seems like if you've invited more mainstream, then the lines moved on where you feel you're at. Yeah. And
you're right. You're right there.
Michael Andlauer, he threw out young, lots of cash, celebrities out there pushing this on a,
I didn't like his Pinto arguments to me. I don't like that argument.
No.
You can't do it.
No. Correct.
And there's one more on Pinto where Kevin McGran of the Toronto Star, who's over there covering the Leafs, obviously, asked him an excellent question about the Pinto suspension. And it's an exchange with him. It's about a minute-long clip if you want to have it. It's clip number 8, Derek.
I'd love to hear it.
Yeah.
I'm curious about Shane Pinto's suspension. Why is it a 41-game suspension and he doesn't even have a contract? When Patrick Marleau's Ironman streak was going, he missed a few games because he didn't have a contract, and his Ironman streak continued after he signed his contract. So even though he missed a few games, why is a 41-game suspension a suspension when player doesn't have a contract yet?
Because my guess is he doesn't have a contract because of the suspension. Well, but people knew that he was being investigated.
He's not earning a salary for 41 games.
In circumstances sometimes require that you take a step back and analyze what's going on instead of just using some rote formula. Once it was clear he was being investigated, I presume that his team didn't think it was a good idea to sign him while the investigation was going on. So, in fact, it was sort of a de facto suspension.
That's a really great question.
Patrick Marleau catching a stray in Sweden.
Yeah, I know. But it's like, if the games don't count when you're not under contract, then what are you suspending him for? He's got to serve 41 once he signs his contract. And
it's an awesome way to word it.
The loophole there is basically Ottawa was going to have to give him $2.1 million or whatever. And they're saying, if you're going to suspend this guy, then we're going to wait and sign him for $750 or whatever.
Almost reminded me of early in my career when Alan Eagleson was still running the NHLPA, and everybody would be kind of scared to ask him a question, but they did anyways. There's a really tough guy named Wally Weir, I think for Quebec Nordiques, and he asked a question, and Alan Eagleson just turned around and said, "Wally, sit down. You're lucky to be in the league."
Oh my God. Really?
That was it. That's how
no
he answered
answer.
it.
Yeah.
No answer.
Meanwhile, Eagleson's eating lunch on my family's money at the time.
It might have been sit down and shut up. You're lucky to be in the league.
Jeez.
So at least Kevin didn't get that out of Gary Bettman.
Yeah.
But Bettman's basically like, without using these words, we do what we want.
Yeah.
Because I said so.
That's right.
Do you want the Bill Daly clip on the draft format? I know you care so much about that.
I actually wrote about it today.
Stupid.
I will say Bill Daly, not the most electrifying speaker, so prepare yourself for this
on
clip.
the NHL draft that a lot of people are going to be very disappointed in.
We actually did a poll, an informal poll of our clubs with respect to what they wanted the draft to look like. and whether they wanted to continue in the traditional format or a new format. And we, surprisingly to some of us, we got an overwhelming response that we should try to pursue a new draft format. So that's what we're going to do. The issue, the only open issue is whether we do that as early as 2024 or whether we push it to 2025. I think our objective is to have a 2024 draft that looks a lot like our traditional draft and then transition in 2025.
Bueller.
Tough listen.
Bueller.
Well, if you get past that, you're not excited to hear him.
It's true.
I think in a perfect world, the last traditional one would be in Vegas at the Sphere.
Oh,
Let's
baby.
go.
We got to go. Hey, Sportsnet, are you listening? Can you send us down there for the draft?
And then you'll see it localized somewhere where you'll get, I don't know, 15, 20 of the top picks in the world in one location.
Mm-hmm.
And then the rest will be done over Zoom. The teams will stay in their respective towns and work it through the internet.
You know what teams should do is they should sink some money into their Zoom backgrounds, make them look as good as Colby's. Get the boardroom spiced up because we don't need to see some bleak boardroom.
The best one ever was during COVID.
In Iserman's house?
No,
with like Venetian blinds.
Belichick, where it's like this video where Belichick wasn't even in his kitchen anymore. It was just his dog sitting at
So, you know, the one thing that I heard is like this solves a lot of problems for GMs. One of them is the owners are tired of spending hundreds of thousands of dollars. And what happens with these towns, and this happens even here, I'm hearing like, good luck trying to get a hotel ticket with Taylor Swift concerts. They go from $400 a night to $1,200 a night. So
when is that happening soon?
No, November 24.
Oh,
so it's a year from now.
Oh, I thought it was this year. It's November now.
They get to clear out all the costs. The second thing is that they have more time now to prepare between the end of the Stanley Cup final, the draft, and free agency. That's a big deal for them. They can't do it
like an extra
traveling back and forth. And another reason why the general
Wi-Fi on the
managers,
planes.
the last reason why the general managers want to get rid of it, privacy. They're tired of it. Watching Elliot hide behind a plant.
Is anyone really cheating on someone, on looking at someone else's paper, though? Oh, we weren't going to take him, but they're going to take him.
But you know what pisses them off? That if they are talking to another team, they don't want to do it in front of 9,000 people and on national television, and it does tip their hand.
Honestly, that is fair. Like, I think it's a little bit ridiculous.
But you know what else, guys? It's an entertainment league. Heaven forbid the people
fair too.
Are entertained in the process of your so serious business.
Yeah, you want to be entertained. General manager's going to say, go hire a juggler. Okay?
Great.
Hey, ride a one-wheeled
a unicycle?
Cycle.
A unicycle?
Yeah, that happens at intermission.
Okay?
That's also a part of what you're selling.
There. I'm trying to win.
Yeah. Well, if I'm the owner, I'm trying to entertain people so they come give me money. But anyway.
All right.
We've solved nothing.
Not like I'm
in this hour.
Hey, we could talk about a hockey game tomorrow, boys.
Oh, thank God.
9 games on tap tonight, though.
Yes, sir.
And then tomorrow, 2 p.m. puck drop. And tomorrow we will be going live from 5 to 7, correct?
Yes, correct.
Good thing I got that in because I wouldn't have if my producer was...
Oh, come on.
It's all right. I'm here to help you.
Almost got the laptop closed and still took
Have
a
a great
hook.
night, everybody. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. Real Kyper and Bourne.